To switch slides.
Certainly. So I always suggest you actually hold your applause, because I don't know if you're going to like what I have to say. It's really kind of coincidental that this is your 29th, because I just turned 29 on Friday. So it's really, and the other thing I noted immediately is how civilized you people are, because there's wine already out. And I think that's the kind of guest experience that we should be focusing on as we go through things. I had a good look at your agenda ahead of time, and Mary was kind enough to help me understand where you were going. And I'm gonna play with a presentation a little bit, because I think the focus on the guest experience is a critical component, but you really got to understand how you're going to leverage that into growing your business. And I think that's probably fundamentally what you're all most interested in. So I think the role of a keynote speaker at any point is to inform. But I also think you need to go beyond pure information and give you some insight, almost from a workshop perspective, is to blend sort of a keynote, is to blend the idea of having a keynote speech with a little bit of pause for thought, and perhaps flavoring what I'm talking about with some questions and some thought-provoking exercises that will allow you to continue through your conversations, not only over the next day and a half in your conference, but also when you get back to work and you're working with your own teams or you're working with your partners on how do you grow your business. Now, I happen to believe, I'm very, very biased right now, I happen to believe that everything that you do in your business should be based on your picture of what unique value you can offer your guests. And I've come full circle on that. For a long time, I actually would go through a lot of machinations about how I would create a strategic plan or a business plan or a marketing plan. And what I came to realize by having a great number of failures and a great number of successes is that it really comes down to, particularly with what's going on with the culture of guests, it comes down to creating unique value for them. And can you, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, find the same unique value in servicing those guests? And so when we speak about focusing on the guest experience, I'm going to try and break it down into developing a common understanding of what I'm talking about when I talk about really compelling experiences, and give you a few takeaways that you can use to test the experiences you offer today, or as you are developing experiences for your guests, is to have a few of those tests. Secondarily, how do we grow capacity and capability, or capability and capacity? And some of you who may have seen me speak before at other events are going to know that capability and capacity I consider the foundations of any successful hospitality business. And so we'll talk through that a little bit, with the opportunity for you to test, as we're talking, your own capability and capacity in your own business to deliver outstanding guest experiences. And then lastly, and I think this is the linchpin, so this is where perhaps a keynote speech needs to go beyond informing and be a little bit more targeted towards people who are intent on growing their business. And that is, how do you reach and leverage your guests? I am by no means going to be able to give you a recipe for doing this, but what I am going to share with you is sort of the sum total of stories and learnings and successes and failures that I've had in my career. And what I seem to find are those core or key pieces of building out a great guest experience that can actually change your business. Anything I say today is not mine. It's ours. Because it comes from working with people like yourselves in lots of different areas around the world, and in Central Ontario, and in Eastern Ontario, and in Western Ontario, and all kinds of different places like Mexico, and in East Africa, and in South Africa. It doesn't matter where you go, the same core components seem to ring true when we find success. I don't know your businesses. And I would be a terrible doctor if I simply started prescribing things for you to do without doing a proper diagnosis. So what we're going to try and do as we go through this presentation is give you a chance to do some self-diagnosis and ultimately some self-prescription. And you don't have to wait for the wine part of the program to do that kind of prescribing. But hopefully what we can do is create some conditions where you're asking yourself some questions that the answers to will help lead you to making great decisions about your business. So I'm going to start with a story. Some of you will have heard the story. It's a story I tell quite often, but I think it's a story that creates the beginnings of an experience for you as attendees at the conference. Many of you won't know that I was a teacher earlier in my career. Taught high school math and phys ed. Got really tired of teaching really quickly because hotels are a lot more fun to work in and the people are a lot nicer. And you can never have wine in a high school. Ever have wine in a high school. Because I was a teacher, I got to work with lots of teachers, and I did lots of professional development with teachers. And one teacher I worked with was a gentleman named Don Clifton. And Don Clifton had a way of expressing things that is completely unique. Well, Don's story went a little something like this. And as I said, I've told it a few times. Don had a class of 6- and 7-year-olds, grades 1s and 2s, and he had said to them, I need you to write a paper that you will present in front of the class about something you know how to do. I'm going to give you the weekend, you're going to come back on Monday, you're going to get up in front of the class, and you're going to talk about something you know how to do. Monday rolls around, the kids are coming up, the stories are, I know how to ride a bike. I know how to bake muffins. I know how to tie my shoe. One young lady came to the front of the room, got to the front, and said, I know how to catch an alligator. So Don said that title got him right up out of his chair. I know how to catch an alligator. So the little girl went on and she said, if you want to catch an alligator, you've got to go where the alligators are. I'd like you to hang on to that thought. Okay, I'd like you to hang on to that thought. You got to go where the alligators are. And since alligators are in the swamp, you've got to go to the swamp if you want to catch an alligator. But you've got to go there with the right tools. She said there are 6 things that you need if you want to catch an alligator. You need a stick, a blanket, a pillow, binoculars, tweezers, and a matchbox. Now, as Don tells the story, he's right into it now. Where's this going? She says, you gather up your tools and you go down to the swamp. You take out your stick first and you rile up the water. Because alligators go to where the water's riled up. But alligators move slowly and cautiously. And so while the old alligator is coming along to where the water's riled up, you're going to lay down your blanket and put down your pillow, and you are going to lay down and go to sleep. That old alligator is going to come along, poke his head out of the water where the water's riled up. He's going to say, what's going on here? He's going to see you sleeping, and he is going to say, sleeping is what's going on here. He's going to crawl up on the bank, lay on your blanket, put his head on the pillow, and go to sleep. But you were not sleeping. You're going to get up. You're going to take your binoculars. You're going to turn them around backwards. You're going to take out your tweezers. You're going to pick the alligator up with the tweezers. You're going to put him in the matchbox. You're going to close the matchbox. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you catch an alligator. Okay. Now, a couple of things here that are great morals, if you will, out of that story that I'm going to use as we go through this experience together to take you back to something. Some of you chuckled. You probably found that amusing. We had an experience together. We now have a shared experience that we can use to help us learn. See, I happen to believe people learn through story. I happen to believe people remember stories. That stories become legend. That legends are what drive your best possible return in marketing. Legends are what drives repeat, loyal business. Legends in our state of technology and connectedness right now, whether you like it or not like being connected or don't like being connected, stories and legends are what's driving success. Now, this little girl knew some things that I think are mind-boggling. The first is the one that I asked you to remember, and that is, she knew if you want to catch an alligator, you got to go where the alligators are. I think that is such a fundamental component of understanding your own business. Who do I want to serve? What kind of experiences do I want to offer? Who do I want to stay with me? Do I want pets and kids? Or do I not want pets and kids? What kind of an experience do I want to create? If you want to catch an alligator, you got to go where the alligators are. If you want your marketing dollars to go a long way, if you want your guests to have the experience you dream about giving to them, you've got to go where those alligators are. You got to go where your guests are. And if your guests are Chardonnay-sipping salmon fishermen, then you got to figure out where Chardonnay-sipping salmon fishermen are and go after them. And when you get them, you've got to deliver an experience that captures them. What that little girl was able to do was envision in her mind, creatively, what she needed to do to bring a big problem down to size. I know for you as entrepreneurs, I own my own business as well, that you are struggling constantly to try and figure out, how do I not just be sustainable, but how do I be successful? That's a big problem. That is one damn big alligator that you've got to keep bringing down to size on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. That's critical for you to be able to do that. And you have to think about the tools and the resources and the time and the money that you have to spend to be able to get the greatest possible return you can. So what I hope we can do by sharing some stories and sharing some examples is to be able to figure out how we can bring the alligator down to size and that you can catch it. And then with some of the presentations that you've got coming up, I've worked with Robert before. I've seen Robert speak several times. He's a brilliant researcher and strategist. He's a great partner. You know, Grace Salmon is somebody I worked with very closely, and a terrific hospitality leader, an advocate for businesses like ours. And somebody who's transforming her organization into being a great marketing entity. You've got talent from Booking.com and from an SEO search firm and from BB Canada and others here who are going to help you with tools to bring that alligator down to size, to be able to pick them up with a pair of tweezers, put them down there and capture them. But I would say to you, in the absence of understanding the guest experience you are truly capable of delivering, you won't get the most value out of that money spent, out of that time, thought, and energy spent. And so what I hope to do is build us up there. I hope over the next few minutes we'll reflect on that story and use that story, that experience we had. For some of you, it generated some emotion that we'll be able to use that as a trigger to help us think about our own businesses, and in particular, about growing your business. So let's start with your story. I am not going to ask anybody to share anything about their businesses. We don't know each other well enough yet. Wait for the wine. But you may want to make some notes. You may want to write a few things down. You may want to think about, that's something I'd like to talk to my team about, or I'd like to talk to some of my colleagues in this room about, or I'd like to talk to Booking.com or BB Canada about. Or others out there that you trust that can help you with the capability and capacity of your business. Okay. So, do you have a business plan that expresses your goals? Again, I'm not looking for an answer. Okay. Do you have a marketing plan that articulates how you will get to your goals? And I'm going to bet most of the people in this room do. Whether it's written down on paper or it's an innate sense of how to run your business, you get it. You got a plan. You have goals. You know what those goals are, and you're trying to achieve them. So I'm going to bet that just about everybody in this room has those two. If I asked, I would bet that very few people in this room have this, which is a guest experience plan. Well, you invited me to talk about focusing on the guest experience. You probably figure I'd recommend something like that. I believe the other two are hollow in the absence of the third. It's a very, very clear picture of what you are uniquely capable to deliver to guests. And I believe that is far more important today than it was 5 years ago, far more important than it was 10 years ago, infinitely more important than it was 15 to 20 years ago. Infinitely more important. And I hope to close the loop on why I feel that way through the presentation. So let me ask you just to think about this. Here's something, if you want to write it down, you can, or if you can just keep it in your head. What are the strengths of your business? Of your inn, of your bed and breakfast? What are the strengths of it? And just keep those in your head. Keep them at the front of your mind, if you would, as we go through a couple of slides and a couple of conversations. So keep that in your brain. What are the strengths of my business? Okay. What we're going to do with that thinking is we are going to test it against what we know about experience. Now, in the context of hospitality, experience is a verb. It's an action word. It's an ing thing. I-N-G. Inging things is critically important to engaging guests. One of the most brilliant campaigns I've seen in recent times is Go RVing. Talk about some of the emotions just watching that commercial can stir up about, it's pretty much saying to a guy like me, you're not a good dad if you don't have an RV, and if you aren't getting out there with your family and doing things that are Canadian. That's how I feel when I watch it. But they've taken an RV, a physical thing, a noun, and they've inged it. Go RVing. Go bed and breakfasting. Go bed and breakfasting. Go inning. Go hoteling. It changes the way in which you think about the experience. The ing's the thing. If you can make your experience a verb, then people can engage in it. And more powerfully, not just engage in it, but sell it for you. So it's a verb. It's to encounter. It is to have gained knowledge through direct participation. I am experiencing something. I am involved in the experience. It is not a passive time. If I truly want success in my business, people cannot have passive interactions with me. They cannot come and say, how was that bed and breakfast that you stayed at the other day? It's good. You need people to walk back into their forum, to their space. And that space may be an office, it may be a home, it may be a country club, it may be a card game, or it may be Twitter. To go into their space and say, you are not going to believe what goes on at Forks in the Trail. This place is awesome. We did this and that and that. But you can't do that if you're passive. If the guest experience is a passive one, it's okay. If the guest experience is an active one, it could be a story about how you catch an alligator. It could be something that evokes emotion. That's really the highest level of experience you can create for somebody, is where it's an emotion, where people say, have you ever had an experience like that? Now, search your own experiences. The most powerful emotions I can dredge up in you is to ask you to search your own experiences and think about that thing that you couldn't wait to get home to tell someone about. It was service at a shoe store. It was a great meal that you had. It was a trip to Cancun. It was something where you couldn't get back. You couldn't wait. It was bursting out of you to show pictures and tell a story. Think about an experience like that. Think about your own guests. I've looked at some of your TripAdvisors and your commentaries. Huh? I have. In there are people passionately talking about staying with you. What is it worth to get 2, 3, 10, 50 more of those people who've become as passionate about your business as you are about your business. In order to do that, you have to get to the experience. Invariably, when I read those comments, I saw things like, I've never had a breakfast like that. The bed was so comfortable. The location was so perfect. It allowed me to do X, Y, and Z. The people were so knowledgeable about their area. They were like ambassadors. These are comments directly off of what I read out there about you. You've evoked emotion in people. And that, folks, is great experiences. Okay. So ultimately, it's the emotional connection we want to go for if we're going to focus on great guest experience. We want that same feeling that you and I have had when we just couldn't keep it in, we just had to tell somebody. And in today's world, telling one person is as good as telling thousands, if we can get them to do it in the right forum. If we can get them to put it on a review site. If we can get them to tweet about it. If we can get them to Facebook it. If we can get them to go on to a booking.com and say, great place, 5-star, 10-star. I believe that experiences answers the question, how do I compete? How do I differentiate? How do I market? How do I grow? How do I clobber the other guy? How do I beat the big hotel brand that has millions more dollars than I do to spend? How do I carve out my own niche? How do I make this sustainable? How do I grow my business? Are all related to experiences. It's the sum total of the stories and legends that people will develop while they're staying with you. But I'll go back to something I said earlier. If you can't break that guest experience down into something that you are entirely capable, the strength of your business, if you can't do that, if you're not able to articulate that ahead of time, plan for it, grow it, nurture it, you're not going to catch that alligator. So having a very clear picture of the kind of experience you want your guests to have, I believe is as fundamental in our business as a business plan and a marketing plan. In fact, I wouldn't do the other two until I understood the first one. So let's talk about how do we begin to test what our strength and our capability is, and how do we grow our capacity to create great experiences, okay? The first thing to understand is to create an experience. What's imperative in that experience? What must I do? Again, I told you, nothing that I've come up with here is my own stuff. I am the classic observer. And so in getting a chance to do some work with OTMPC, getting a chance to do some work with the RTOs, a couple of different of them, whatever numbers they are for whatever regions they now mean, getting to do some work with Michelle and Grace with the Resorts of Ontario, I've been exposed to lots of great information. And so one of the things that absolutely struck me, it hit me like getting punched in the face, was these experiential imperatives. So if you're going to test your experience, test them around these 6 components. One is that I want to learn by doing something with someone who lives here. In other words, to create a great guest experience, it has to be credible. I can't think of anybody who is more credible in the hospitality and tourism world than people who operate bed and breakfast. I realize it's glamorous, right? I realize, right, it's like living the life of a rock star. But I can't think of anybody who's more credible in terms of delivering an experience than you are. And than you are in your own homes. 2, you got to have authenticity if you want to have a great experience. It's often easier to look at some of these things when it's not authentic. So if you think about going to a place like Niagara Falls and going to a wax museum and looking at wax statues and sort of saying, well, that's kind of cool, But nobody gets emotional about it. Nobody says, greatest wax museum I've ever been. It was incredible to see Michael Jackson there with the glove on. Look, the Queen's here. Right? It doesn't evoke the emotion that you're looking for when you don't have authenticity. Uniqueness. Again, nobody has more unique attractions than the attractions that you have, and the locations that you've chosen, and the opportunity to take advantage of whatever bounty is around you, both in physical spaces and services and partnerships. It's got to touch the senses. It has to have involvement. One of the things that we've introduced at the Delta Guelph, which is a fairly large facility, is the ability to cook your own meal. People are paying us to cook their own meal because it's more powerful to them to have an experience as a team in a meeting setting or as an individual to work in a professional kitchen with a professional coach who's got a red seal or as a chef de cuisine. It is more powerful to them that they will pay for that experience. Isn't that amazing? I will pay you to cook my own food and eat it. That's all involvement. That's the imperative of involvement. Is it exclusive, or do I have inside access? See, that feeds my ego, my prestige as a traveler. Can I do something I don't think everybody else can do? Many of you have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, 5 spaces maybe. That's unique. That's insider. If they've got the line on it, if you've got those guests, and I know you do, who come back year after year at that same time frame, because it happens to coincide with a festival, it happens to coincide with the leaves turning, it happens to be New Year's, their birthday, you're giving them unique access. You're feeding their ego. You've created an emotional bond with them. That's an alligator you captured. Lastly, have a takeaway. And the takeaway is about how do we get people to engage in the relationship long after they've left. There is a reason why Disney takes pictures of people on the roller coaster. Because 6 months later, when the picture comes up, somebody goes, do you remember that trip? Oh man, yeah, I remember you throwing up. Right? I remember this, I remember that. Yeah, do you remember that? Do you remember what we did? Do you remember what we ate? And you stir up all of that emotion. You create a longing within people to do it again. You know, the picture of you with the giant fish, right? The picture of you and your girlfriends out on a balcony in a beautiful setting at one of your operations. Stirs up all that emotional experience and floods people with that sense like we need to do that again. So these imperatives create almost a checklist for you of am I delivering experiences? Am I delivering something in a credible, authentic, unique way? Do I have the opportunity to encourage involvement from my guests? Do I have the opportunity to stroke their ego, build prestige, give them insider access? Because of my relationship with a partner or a cohort, can I get them something they can't get on their own? And can I give them something so that they relive that experience again and again and again, longing to come back and see me? At one point in my career, I spent 220 nights a year staying in hotels. It's just what I did. I traveled. I can count on one hand the ones that I remember. And I remember them because one or more of these elements was taken care of. I remember a trip to the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess, where Southwest Airlines had absolutely butchered my bag. I had no underwear, I had no ties, I had no socks, and I had a bag that was beat to crap. But I had a housekeeper who got me, without asking, toothpaste, a toothbrush, some deodorant, a razor. And then, on the second day, I came back and my bag was sewn together. Right? there was a level of engagement. I felt emotional about that somebody had made the leap from, boy, that's too bad, to, I got to help somebody out here. I have told that story in multiple countries to multiple groups constantly. And I still get notes from people who say, hey, I went to the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess. I was down in that area. It's awesome, right? Because it created an emotional response for me. I don't remember being in the Marriott in Boise, Idaho. I know I was there. I got billed for it. But I don't remember it. I don't have any kind of emotional connection. But places like the Fairmont Scottsdale Princess, places like the Savoy in London, places like the Hilton in Abu Dhabi, I had an emotional connection with because of the experience they clearly were trying to create. Let's talk about how we now, if we understand experiences, and if you can identify with that, and if you feel like I do about those things, like, boy, yeah, I have had some amazing experiences, boy, there are elements of those things in there. Then how do I actually go about testing my capability to deliver them and my capacity to deliver them? So I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about those two elements. Capability. So what are the particular strengths that your business possesses that create value for your customer? So I'd asked you earlier, what do you do best? Now go back and think about that or look at that list and think about it in the context of creating experiences, of inging things, of making them active and involved. Again, I'm not looking for an answer from you. But could you turn what you do best into an even greater experience? Could you leverage what you do best? In this muddled world, could you leverage what you do best to have a clear distinction? I believe capability forms the basis for becoming an experience. If you love Scotch and cycling, can I take Scotch and cycling and can I turn that into an experience because of my own passion, my own knowledge, my own ability for other people who like Scotch and cycling? Do I have a unique location? Do I have a unique setup? Do I have a historical entity? Do I have a certain talent or ability that I can make into a true experience? The kind of thing that when people hear about it from a distance, they immediately say, oh, that must be. It's your story. It's what you're uniquely capable, and it allows you to rise above the average, to rise above the din of all of the other places that are getting marketed. It allows you to identify who your alligators are. In any business I'm asked to go in and support, first conversation we have, other than what's your name, is what are we capable of? What are our strengths? What are we best at? And then we ask the question, well, how good are we delivering that? How truly excellent are we at delivering that? And if we're good at it, are we monetizing it? Are we taking that and using that as an advantage that we can market and capture guests with? So I'm in a hotel right now. It's not my hotel. I happen to be the general manager right now. I'm leaving. I was brought on for 3 months to come in and help, to fix. It's kind of what I do. And I've stuck around, one, because it's interesting, two, because Marriott, a hotel monolith, bought it, and I've had access to all their stuff, which is really kind of cool. And because the hotel needed time to right itself to find the right general manager. But what we created there, in terms of what our capability was, is we had really, really friendly staff. But we did a crappy job of greeting people when they came to see us. We did a terrible job of somebody coming down for breakfast. There was never anybody to say, good morning. There was never anybody to give you your bill in a timely fashion and get you out the door with a thanks and a cup of coffee. So in small ways, we began to say, we have really friendly people. That's a real strength. Why are they never around? We happen to think breakfast is an advantage in our competitive set because we actually serve real food. at breakfast, much like you do. Okay? We said we have to be relentlessly reliable. We have all these resources, machines, tools, dollars, everything. But how can we drop the ball? How do you have an experience if you don't get the first steps right? So we're working on being relentlessly reliable. If we make you a promise, we keep that promise. But that's not enough to turn it into an experience. That's just enough to say, good. The last piece is the development of signature services. Things you can only get from us. Might be food, might be linens, might be soap, might be a wedding setup, but it's signature services to take what we believed was our strength, we have resources and great people, and turn it into an experience. Capability, my friends, forms the basis of having a great experience. You have certain capabilities that no one can duplicate, that no one can deliver the same way you can. Use them. Use them. That is your advantage in a world which is so freaking muddled with information and noise that it's hard to figure out where you are. Capability is your advantage. But capability alone is not enough. Because what you have to do is continue to build your capacity to serve your capability. So you can say, I'm the world's foremost expert on Scotch drinking salmon fishermen. You can say that, and you can be that, and you can be genuine about that. But if you don't have the capacity to get that message out and to deliver on great experiences when people come, you're cheating yourself. So the ability to deliver your capability reliably and to grow your business appropriately through focused efforts. I'm going to bet you're like me in my small business. I do not have an unlimited marketing budget. I do not have an unlimited budget for capital requests. I can't replace beds and linens and pillows all the time. At least not if I want to pay myself at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. So understanding your capability and focusing your resources around your capability to grow capacity is fundamental to making great decisions. Real short story for you. At one time in my career, I worked for a company called Canadian Pacific Hotels. Okay? And I did strategic work for Canadian Pacific Hotels. And I got to go around and help hotels develop their strategic plans. And I landed in a place called Jasper Park Lodge. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. Wonderful place in the Canadian Rockies. And we were sitting in a place called Point Cabin, built in 1930, a place where the Queen has stayed. Place where stars have stayed, dignitaries, beautiful old log cabin. It's got its own kitchen, it's got 5 bedrooms, got a card room upstairs, it's cool. Got a beautiful porch overlooking Lac Beauvert. And we were sitting in that beautiful, historic cabin talking strategy and experience and capability. We were right into it. And the food and beverage director kept getting up and going and get coffee. And he was annoying everybody, as food and beverage directors sometimes do. Okay? But he was getting up constantly to go and get more coffee throughout this thing. And we're sitting out on this porch, and elk are running around. And finally, the general manager says, Brian, sit down. And Brian says, I just have to keep getting up because, I need coffee. I'm really fired up about the conversation we're having. I need coffee. And the general manager says, why do you have to keep getting up to get coffee? You just got a cup. And he goes, because we have these stupid little cups that hold about 2 ounces of coffee that we have to buy because everybody with Canadian Pacific has to buy them. And it was like a light went on in the room. For me, for others in the room. You could see it. 7 or 8 of these 12 people all went, why in heaven's name are we buying cups this big to put in a 1930? We should have mugs your grandmother made that hold tons of coffee that you can sit out there and watch the elk and watch the lake and enjoy yourself with. And that was a signal to me about how important capacity is. Because for years, probably tens of thousands of dollars have been spent on crappy little China cups, spec 123, bought from, at the lowest possible price, from some warehouse in Markham that had absolutely nothing to do with building the capacity of Jasper Park Lodge. That changed everything in my mind for strategy. If you decide your strength is your bed product, like you've got an unbelievable room product, and that you could do beds the way nobody else could, and you want to have 800 thread count sheets on your bed, but you say, I can't afford that. Test your strategy. Step back from it and say, if I really want to blow people away, and that's what I believe my capability is, then how do I find the money to do that, to build my capacity in order to deliver that experience? I can't just say it and not build my capacity to do it. So I hope for those of you who have stayed in big hotels that have stupid little cups, I hope that creates an emotional experience for you where you go, yeah, why do they have those dumb cups? Why does somebody give you a 2-ounce juice glass? It's like a thimble. These are not things that create experiences. These are not things that build your capacity around what your capability is. Now remember, your capabilities are unique to you. They're the things that drive you, that make you passionate. And what I'm advocating is not to tell you what they should be, but is to say, once you understand them, once you've divined them, once they're real and tangible to you, work in your capacity. Don't deviate from your capacity. Make decisions in support of you being able to develop your capability. Capacity creates the conditions to grow your business. Say that again. Capacity creates the conditions to grow your business. It is the money you spend, it is the time you put in, it is the creativity, it is the people you partner with, that you engage with, it's the people you market with, and it's founded on the ability to create a great experience. Because then, with laser precision, you can make decisions about how to spend your time, thought, and effort. How, then, do I turn capacity and my capability into business growth? Again, there's no recipe. I don't have a recipe for you. If I did, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be here. I'd be in Bermuda, or maybe my villa in Switzerland. But I do believe that if you can understand what your experience is and build capability and capacity, you can reach and leverage the right guests for you. In the absence of that, you're just taking guests in. Good ones, bad ones, some with pets, some who smoke, some who don't smoke. Some who drink, some are there for the right reasons, some are not there for the right reasons. You're just taking guests in. The question I'd like you to ponder deep into the night over wine is, who are your guests based on the experiences that you deliver credibly, authentically, uniquely, interactively? Who can you give ego or prestige to? Who can you give special access to? Who can you give a keepsake that they genuinely treasure? Even if that treasure isn't physical, it's mental. So how do you reach and leverage your guests? So there's a series of questions I'd advocate that you ask. I would say, who are my guests today? You don't have to answer this one. Am I happy with my guests today? It's a genuine question. Do I have the right guests? Are they my ideal guests? Are they people who appreciate and celebrate my unique capability? How are you reaching your guests? Your guests, not the guests, your guests. That is, those who are seeking your experience, how are you getting to them? If you want to catch an alligator, you got to go where the alligators are. 6-year-old girl knew that. So if you have capability and you have the capacity to deliver incredible experiences, where are those guests? Who are they listening to? Who do they find credible? Who are they talking to? What forums do they have? What are they reading? Where do they go online? Who are their friends? Are all questions that should be fundamentally informing you about how to go and find your alligators. How are you leveraging guest experiences into loyalty, repeat visits? Why do those people who keep coming back to you year after year come back to you year over year? Just answer that question for yourself. Why do those people keep coming? What is it about some people that they keep referring other guests to me? What is it about the experience I've created for that first group of guests that they keep telling their friends to come? What is it about that I'm doing with them, and can I rinse it and repeat it? Can I turn that from sustainability into true success, hitting my own objectives? Can I understand my guest's behavior when my guest behaves in that way, as a brand zealot, as somebody who celebrates what unique experiences I deliver? Can I use that understanding to rinse and repeat and turn that into sustainability and success? Wow. If you want to catch an alligator, you got to go to the swamp. And you got to have the right tools, the capability and capacity, bring it down to size, put it in your pocket and take it home. For your consideration, I have been so impacted by this information that I'm about to share with you. Some of you are going to go, as we often do with information that's shared with us. Sometimes with information that maybe we don't completely understand. I know I didn't. And I really had to do some work around it. But again, this is one of those things that hit me like that punch at Point Cabin, where it was like, what are we doing buying crappy cups? It was as simple as that to begin to understand the concept of capacity as it was for me to see these statistics and understand what's going on in our world. The average traveler is going to have 9.5 web sessions and visit 22 unique sites to make a decision about traveling. They're doing their homework. And I believe they're doing their homework because they want to have the best possible what? Experience. The best possible experience. Smart 3, I don't know what that is. 85% of traveling consumers have a smartphone. It's the year where more information is being communicated to smartphones than to desktop computers and laptops. 2015. Doug had 2 walk-ins. I'm willing to bet they probably saw his sign, his Todd sign, and they said, let's check that place out. Went click, 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 click. Saw he's got a 9.7 guest rating, took a couple of looks at his pictures on booking.com and said, let's drive up there. That, folks, is a difference in our world. You don't have to love it. You don't have to have a smartphone. You just have to be a smart business person to say, how can I take advantage of people's access to information? It's not the stat that punched me in the gut and made me sit up. It was what it was telling me about people's behavior. Look at this one. Oh, there's phone. Smartphone. 76% of consumers think our advertisements are overblown. 92% of the traveling populace says they trust peer review more than ads. I trust some guy in Idaho I've never met more than I trust your ad. What does that tell you about the behavior of the traveling public? 70+% are looking at reviews and review sites to solidify their choice. Before they press book, they're searching you. They're reading the comments. They're looking at the peer reviews, and they're saying, what kind of an experience can I expect? Even though the person who wrote it may have nothing in common with them. They have more trust in that than our own advertisements. Now, please don't interpret that to think that I say don't advertise. I don't. I think it's a critical component of any plan. But what I am saying to you is the experiences that you create and the way in which people talk about those experiences is becoming the dominant form of decision making on our planet. There's 1.96 billion people in social media right now. I don't know what these people are talking about. I'm on Twitter, I tweet. I got a Facebook page. I don't want to know what you're doing for dinner. Okay? But someone does. Someone who wants to make a dinner choice and knows you and says, you know what, we like the same things. Melanie and I, whenever we go shopping for shoes, we love the same shoes. Whenever we go out to eat, we love the same meals. She's concerned about the things I am. I trust Melanie. Melanie's my friend. I follow Melanie. And if Melanie says that bed and breakfast was the best experience she's had in weeks, months, years, I'm going. Because there's 1.96 billion people telling stories about how to catch alligators out there. And if our story can reach a small, small, small portion of them, the opportunity is exponential. I'm not telling you to tweet. I'm not telling you to get a Facebook page and Instagram. I'm not telling you to get Pinterest. I'm not. But if that's where your alligators are, you got to find a way to be there. Or you got to find a way to find people who want to be there and will represent your experience positively. Lastly, I just like this fact. You can probably barely read it because phone jumped in there. There are more Facebook accounts than there are Roman Catholics. I just like that fact. I don't really think it tells us anything. I don't think it tells us anything about what we've been talking about, but I just kind of like that fact, right? I just thought that's kind of interesting. This is for your consideration. This is for your consideration about how you find your alligators and how you bring them down to size. I believe the most powerful form of marketing that you possess right now is the experiences of the guests who've already stayed with you and the guests who are about to stay with you. And if you can figure out how to leverage them, then you can target those resources towards building your capacity and building your capability. You can go only for the alligators you want to catch. Like there was experience imperatives. There's marketing imperatives I believe that this leads us to conclude on. And please, as I've said to you, I'm not telling you to stop marketing one way or another. You know what makes you successful. I'm just suggesting to you that you may need to consider what the buying habits of today's travelers are. Particularly in a world where I can go to one site and search thousands of hotel sites and find out if they like pet emus, right? We can go and do all those things. So it's like a clearinghouse. It's made what we do a commodity. It's just pulled it all together, and it just says one hotel room is no different than another. We know that differently. A bed and breakfast room is infinitely different from a motel room, a hotel room, a flop house. It's infinitely different. Infinitely different. And so how do you fight through that? I'm suggesting to you, you have to refine your story to find your audience. What's my true capability? What kind of experiences am I truly capable of delivering? Do I have the things I need to truly deliver that experience? Who wants to engage with me? Where are those Scotch drinking salmon fishermen that I want? Where's the hikers, the canoeists? Where's the culinarians? Where are the people who love arts and culture like I do and would take advantage of who are the historians that want the authenticity of my building or my period rooms or the history in my area or the art around me? We have to move from broadcasting advertisement to engaging your customers. Broadcasting. I'm going to put it out there. There it is. Everybody can see it. I'm not saying you stop broadcasting. In fact, you should broadcast. But we have to move more of our time, thought, and energy to engagement. Because it's through engagement I can have the beginnings of an experience. I can find other people who stayed with you who like what you do, and I like them, and I like what they say, and I'm going to go too. Because if I don't go, I'm an idiot. We have to figure out who these people trust, your alligators, who they listen to. How do I develop credibility? How do I partner for credibility? How do I partner for cool? If I can't deliver an experience that I think would complete the experience I deliver on my own end, how do I partner with the person who can? Once they've had our experience, how do we get them to tell our story? How do you get somebody to tell your story? How do you get them to go back and teach the natives in the hills folk songs about you? How? What is it that I can get them to do to go online to their site, to post a picture, to go to my review site? What can I get these people to do, and how can I get them to do it? I know all of you have had this experience in what you do. You've had somebody come up to you who stayed with you, and they've looked you dead in the eye, and they have said to you, "That was the most wonderful experience I've ever had." And they were genuine. They were emotional about it. Something happened. There was a proposal. There was a wedding. There was a divorce. There was something that went on, right? There was something that went on, and you got that, but you don't know what it is, right? And they walk out, and you say, "Holy smoke, that was cool." And it's gone. How do you get that person to say, "Really? Can you do something for me? Can you do something for me? I'll tell you what, if you do something for me, I got a deal for you. I got an offer for you. I want to make you loyal. I want you to come back. I want you to, I can get you something." How do I get that person to engage with their community to feed my business? When they do tell the story, how do we leverage that, right? So what happens? Do we let it sit out there in cyberspace and say, "That's a nice story, thanks for the review"? Or do you capitalize on it and try and find a way to turn it into greater advantage? I know you want to grow your businesses. We all do. We may want to grow them for different reasons. That's okay. I'm growing my business so I can retire. But I've got to figure out how to leverage the experience we're having together, for those of you who appreciate what I've done, and figure out how I turn that into more business. For those of you who have had an experience with me, who will remember the alligator story, who will remember crappy little teacups in Jasper, who will remember the Scottsdale Princess, how can I leverage that to build my business? That's the selfish question I ask when I stand in front of you. It should be the selfish question you ask as you sit. So, thoughtful reflection. Let's bring this all together, if we can. And see if I can't leave you with a little bit of a blueprint based on what we've talked about. And I appreciate the fact that some of you have humored me by taking notes. You will have access to the presentation. As I said, it's not mine. You're welcome to it. But how do we bring this together? First, start where I began. Invest in a guest experience plan. Even if it's on the back of a napkin, even if it's just over a glass of wine and saying, what are we uniquely capable of delivering? What kind of experiences do we want our people to have? What are we passionate about? How do we turn that into growth or success? Just have the conversation about what kind of experience you want your guests to have. And then test that against your business plan and your marketing plan and any other plan that you have and how you plan to spend your money. And do they all line up? If they don't, make them line up. Take the binoculars, turn them around backwards, and make a big problem a small one. Focus right in on how do you bring that problem down to size so you can pick it up, put it in a matchbox, and take it home. Understand what your capability to deliver experiences is. Really, be hard on yourself. Test yourself. Ask other people what they think your capability is. Ask them how they see your business. Ask the people who have stayed with you, who love you, and the people who have not come back. Why? Be focused on how you can grow your capacity. Don't get diverted from getting better at what you're already great at. It's a very basic principle I use when I hire people. I've never hired anyone for something they're not good at. So work from strength. Build your capacity based on what you can uniquely deliver. Work from strength. Feels so much better because you win a lot when you work from strength. Work to find the best way to articulate your story publicly. Go to where your alligators are, folks. And I can't advocate for you how you like to market, how you like to tell that story. I can't. I'd be a crappy doctor to prescribe to you how to do it. But you know your business, you know your customers. Start asking some questions about where do they go and get information. When somebody calls you and says, do I ever have a deal from you? It's like, well, Mercury. And we know your target customers. My favorite question is, really? Who are they? Who are my target customers? Oh, we think you're a demographic of age. I said, really? We don't think that. Here's what we think our customers are. I'll call you when I'm ready. Again, it's not about choosing one thing over another thing. It's about where are your customers making their buying decisions and how do you be there? Credibly, authentically, interactively, engaging with them. What media allows me to have my guests engage with me? Again, it's not a prescription. It's simply saying, how? How do I get people to engage? How do I get them to tell my story? How do I get them to repeat that story again and again? How do I get them to use the emotion and the passion that they've got to say, there is no place like my business? Is the experience my guests have powerful enough to have them share chapters in my story? You've all got a story to tell. I love stories of bed and breakfast. I'm trying to buy a bed and breakfast right now. And it's like I'm trying to wrest a baby out of somebody's hands. And I love that, and I appreciate that. Because I understand the heart and soul that is in this business for these people. It's not helping me get to a price I'll buy it at, but it is a fantastic story. And the more I learn about the story, the more it's changed the way in which I would operate that business. Because what they're educating me on is what their true capability is. They're wonderful operators. They're not members, which is a problem. But they're wonderful operators. So how do we get our guests to tell our story as powerfully as we can? Thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute pleasure. No, don't clap. Don't clap. No, clapping. No, don't clap. Don't clap. Don't clap. Thank you so much for your time. What I can hope has happened is that you have a few positive memories, maybe a giggle or two, maybe something that you can relate to somebody else who's not here. And ultimately, I hope that you've got a couple of nuggets that you can use to grow your business with. I would like nothing better than to be back here a year or 2 years later, or to get a phone call or an email, or to be staying at one of your places, and you say, you know, I learned one thing and it worked. I'd like nothing better than that.